Hey everybody, welcome back to MACkiteboarding Wing Wednesdays. I'm Tucker, and today I'm talking with you about the new Ozone Litewind Wing for 2024, the Ozone Liteforce. So this is a brand new model for Ozone, specifically aimed at riding in light winds. So if you're interested in that, interested in this wing, hang around. We're going to talk about some of the features and my personal review after riding it for a few weeks. So what do we have here? It is a big light wind wing. Light winds need big wing, especially if you're a big guy like me. And what I've been testing here is the 7.7 Liteforce. It's a brand new release from Ozone, and they did a spectacular job on this wing, really capturing what a lot of riders are going to want in light wind, what I really look for in a light wind wing, and I can tell you they really nailed it. So let's talk through some of the features here, and then I'll bring you my review here after that. So starting at the front here, I'm really going to have to pitch this thing over because it's huge. I'll throw it down and show you some things. So we have a leading edge handle here. It has a little bit of stiffness. It's nice and large enough, but still gives you some good torque. I would say it's medium stiffness. It's not super hard like a hard handle, but it's also not floppy like some of the early soft handles. So just a good lightweight usable leading edge handle with a little patch underneath here. We've got our included leash with a little swivel on it. Ozone wings do come included with a waist belt, not a wrist leash. As you can tell, it's detachable, so I can connect this to a wrist cuff or to my harness if I want to do that. Going into the strut here, I'll pick this big monster up again. As you can tell, this is pretty tall wing. I'm 6'3". So it's a big wing, as are all 7 and 8 meters, I suppose, and this is a 7.7, almost 8 meters. We've got the new and improved Ozone handles here, hard handles. They're very narrow diameter, so they're easy to grip, really direct connection to the strut. Its plate is interfaced right to the strut. When you pump this up hard, it is a really tight connection. This front one is a little bit angled with a nice pistol grip here and a pad, so if it hits your board or your body, it doesn't hurt as much. The rear handle is also a little bit angled, so that really indexes your wrists in a natural position rather than having them kinked outward like that. It just gives you a nice locked in feel and gives you a better grip, less fatigue in your arms and wrists, so that's all good stuff. I was riding a harness line with this. I was connecting my pigtail here on the inside stanchion of the back, and then a couple inches up here, and you can adjust that depending on the wind speed, so that worked great for me. Got a big old strut here. It's a big wing. You want a stiff strut to transfer that power and keep it from deforming when you're out there riding, especially as you start to get more wind. That's more sail, a lot more torque on all those parts. So you want a nice, stiff, sleek strut, which they've got here. We've got independent inflation here. They both take the Ozone-style Boston valve, which is either a screw-on connection or the big fat tip that just pressure fits into there with a cover. Same thing here. So you can inflate independently, and there's no tubes or anything to have to service or to go bad or to yank off by accident. And then if one of these goes bad, God forbid, out on the water, you still have a nice inflated portion of the wing so that it doesn't sink, or have something flotation wise to get on and save yourself if you need to. So that is really nice. I've always appreciated that about the wings that have independent inflation. And Ozone did a great job with that, kept the weight down, kept it simple, and it's all good there. So, talked about some of those things now. The frame itself, although at first glance might look like your traditional Dacron, but this is an upgraded Dacron. It's a really premium stuff. If you're familiar with the duotone SLS line, previously this is a similar kind of Dacron they're using. So it's super light. It's even stiffer than your normal Dacron, And it's just a perfect application for a light wind wing because it's stiff, it's snappy, it's lightweight, but it's also not so expensive like a Lula, especially on a wing of this size would be incredibly expensive. You're talking about almost $3,000 for an 8-meter most likely. So going with this material really keeps the price down and is very comparable in these conditions. So I'm a huge fan of it, and Ozone did a great job choosing the materials for this kite to really maximize performance and longevity, but without hurting your pocketbook. So big thumbs up for those guys down at Ozone, I'm sorry. Ozone, the O's get me here, but Ozone. So they've done awesome with that. Getting into the canopy, we have a 3x3 ripstop here in the main section of the canopy, and then also a 3x3 ripstop in the trailing edge here in the white portion. Had to actually count those because it looked like maybe they were different materials, but actually it's just a different color. So really solid canopy across. Got a nice wide window here close to the strut, so that gives you a nice look out the top when you're riding, and you can even catch a glimpse out the bottom if you're holding it a little higher. So it's a nice spot, and you can see a broad picture of what's downwind of you rather than just kind of the sliver forward like some wings do. So depending on the kind of window you like and what position you're holding it in, sometimes it can be challenging on a big wing like this to have a good view without having this massive window that adds a lot of weight and can sometimes stretch out prematurely if you have it too large. But having it right here tucked in by the strut is an awesome placement for it. It eliminates a lot of those issues, but still gives you a good view. So I'm really stoked about that. Trailing edge here, we do have some replaceable battens here. They're hard fiberglass battens, but those are replaceable, removable, whatever you want to do there. But they help cut the flutter on the trailing edge, especially as you start to get to the top end range of this wing. This is a lot of canopy. It can move a lot of air through it. So having those in there really smooths it out and keeps it efficient without the chattering in the background as you start to ride faster. And this wing will allow for it. So we'll get into that in a little bit. Towards the trailing edge, we've got a nice little load panel here to help transfer some of that energy. The taper here picks off right about there and really supports the trailing edge of this canopy, so it's not going to bag out prematurely or get, you know, too chattery and stretched out through that area like can happen with some wings, especially in the past. But that helps with that, but also keeping it nice and lightweight here without using any heavy materials on the trailing edge. So they did an awesome job with that. And then on the leading edge, Ozone has started to use the same material here on the beginning of the canopy, that transition into the canopy. And that does a couple of things. Number one, it keeps this portion of that airfoil section very tight and stiff, and it helps the transition from the leading edge into that, so you're not prematurely wearing out that front of that canopy, rubbing on this material and sitting on the sand or rocks or concrete, whatever you have. That really helps with that, but also stiffens that leading edge, which is a real contributor to the high-end performance, the upwind ability of the wing. So that's something that will be more important, increasingly important as the wing gets older and more abused throughout the years here. So there is a good look at her. You could probably tell when I was holding it, it's got a decent dihedral in this wing. That really does help with the span because this is a little bit more of a spanny wing. It's got a nice long strut and a lot of canopy back here, but to handle that span, they've really added a lot of dihedral. It gives you great lift, makes pumping a lot easier, and just the stability of the wing in light wind, it really helps to roll a wing of this size from edge to edge when you're transitioning or when you're riding waves. So I've really appreciated that. And I think they put the perfect amount in there where it's not too much, but it's enough to really help out. So getting into my review portion, is this a good light wind wing? Certainly. Just to cut to the chase, it's phenomenal. For its size, it's got adequate power. It's got amazing speed and performance for a big light wind wing. I would say my advice to anyone buying this wing would be to size up. And it's not because you can't use a smaller wing, because you certainly can, but what I would say with this wing is it rides really happily with a little bit more power. So normally, while I might ride a 7 in a lot of wings, I'm gonna choose the 7.7 for the Liteforce. And the reason being, it's just that much easier to get up. And then once you do, you have more canopy to build more speed and power and apparent wind, and that just makes it more fun to ride. It's by no means a dog. Some light wind wings are like, yeah, they get you on foil, but they're so slow, they're so draggy, they're so horrible upwind. They don't build any apparent wind. It's just like, man, I can get up, but all I can do is cruise around slowly and keep my ground upwind. This thing is a superstar. It feels like a freaking race car for light wind. It's a blast. It really is. You know, a light wind wing, if you want to get out there and have more performance on those light wind days, this is it. It's so light, it definitely feels like a smaller wing in your hand. It flies really clean into the wind. So if you're out there, you know, practicing new jibes, new tacks, different wing handling maneuvers and things like that, it just feels smaller. It doesn't feel so huge and cumbersome like you're trying to flip a barge around and get it to turn. You know, it really is quite responsive. And I attribute a lot of that to the lighter weight and also the sleekness of the frame and just the overall speedier, sleeker design. So I'm really loving this wing. It's a ton of fun. And I'm gonna go ahead and just put it out there. This is definitely one of my favorite wings for light wind that I've ever flown. Any price bracket, you know, any year, whatever, this is one of my favorites. And it's not because it's got the most grunt, the most power, because there are those wings, you know, that you can ride them a little smaller and they'll get you on foil, but at the end of the day, you know, they're just not that much fun to ride beyond just like the ability to get up and ride. This wing does offer a lot of performance and fun and surfability in those conditions where normally can be kind of lame, to be honest, you know, to get out there and ride, and you can't really progress a lot, or you know, you can't really get the heart pumping that much because it's just kind of slow and mellow, and that's great too. But if you're in the mood for pushing your limits a little bit more and ripping past your buddies and being able to ride faster foils, this is the kind of wing you want for light wind. Now, that's not to say that, you know, your newer riders can't appreciate this wing. I would say new riders can certainly appreciate this wing. It's not one that's 100% pull and go. You might need just a tad more wind as a brand new rider, first time out. But one thing you'll appreciate once you do get on foil, or once you get a little bit more wind finding that gust, is that once you're up, you're not gonna immediately get overpowered and out of control. And a gust isn't gonna just make you rip on your face and fall under the wing. You know, it's a really manageable wing, very comfortable to ride, quite light in terms of the power delivery through the handles. So it just feels like a pleasure. It's easy to ride. You know, it's not overly technical, even though it is offering some higher level performance. Just a very easy, intuitive wing to ride for light wind. And yeah, I really can't say enough good about it. I've been really stoked. The price on it is absolutely fair for the performance and the technology that's going into this wing. You'd expect it to be quite a bit more expensive, and a lot of the wings I would compare it to are going to be in that $2,400 to $3,000 range. So it's pretty impressive that at a lower dollar, at a lower tier price, you can achieve a lot of that same performance and benefit. So I think the Liteforce is going to be a hugely popular wing this summer and throughout the year for anyone that might need a bigger wing for light wind, or if you're just a heavy rider that needs a bigger wing in general. The Liteforce is going to be a very appealing option because a lot of the larger wings are meant solely for light wind. So that means if you're a heavier rider riding a 7 meter, you know, in 18 to 20 knots, the wing is just not built for that. It's not happy, it's unstable, it's deforming, you know, it's gonna wear out really fast. But the upgraded frame on this, as well as the faster, sleeker design and some of the other design elements, really allow this lighter wind wing to be treated more like a high performance wing, or treated like a higher wind wing for a heavier rider. So I've been really impressed, you know, overall by this, and I think there's a lot of riders that can really benefit from the performance that the Liteforce offers. So if that sounds like your thing, reach out to us here at the shop. We'll get you set up with one. In terms of things I don't like about the Liteforce, I'm gonna go ahead and say my least favorite thing is the ozone valves. It's kind of a nitpick because they work great. They're super reliable. They've been around forever. They're useful. They do the job. But what I would love to see is have them using something that's a little faster, that is a little less proprietary in terms of the type of nozzle you're using. You know, a lot of brands now have kind of standardized with either a hose bayonet fitting or with the HP valve, like an inflatable sup. Those are kind of the two most popular valve fittings. So they're widely available, you know, at any location, whether it's a kite shop or even like Walmarts and stuff like that. Sometimes even have some of that stuff where, you know, if you lose one or if you forget to buy one or whatever, you know, they're out there, they're readily available. But the screw-in ones for this are really hard, if not impossible to find. The fat tip ones, you know, you can get them, they're still out there. We have them at the shop, of course, but they're just not gonna be as readily available. They're not gonna be on every pump that you get from any manufacturer. You know, really you're gonna need to buy a specific Ozone or WMFG pump or something that's specifically meant to fit that kind of a fitting, which is just not as popular as it used to be. So they're just not as readily available, and it does take a little bit more time, you know, to screw the valve in, to unscrew the top, to put the thing in, inflate it, screw the top back on, put it back down, versus, you know, an HP valve where you plug it in, turn, pump up, undo it, or a hose fitting where you plug it in, turn, pump it up, let it go, put a cap on. It's just a bit more to do. It's a little bit heavier. It's a little bit more cumbersome, kind of in your way. You know, they have these nice caps on them, which help with the leash catching on it. But as you can tell, you can still catch a leash on that, you know, and it is kind of annoying. From a nitpicky perspective, again, you know, it's by no means something that ruins this wing. It's not something that makes me go, man, I don't want to ride that. I'm gonna have this thing in my truck all summer for sure, and it won't bother me, but it is something, you know, if I could have my wish list, that would be something I would put on. Additionally, I would say, you know, they're doing something different than all the other brands with the waist belt attachment with the leash. And it is removable, so you can attach a cuff to it. They're not included. And it is removable, so you can attach easily to most harnesses. But a lot of riders, I would say, aren't gonna love having a clip-on waist belt with a plastic clip. You either want, you know, a minimalist wrist connection or, you know, minimalist waist connection to a belt that's a bit more secure than like a plastic buckle. That's just my 2 cents on it, but it is nice that they at least include a leash, and it is a really nice high quality M steel leash. I just wish that, you know, it didn't have the cheapo waist buckle part of it, personally, because I typically ride a harness, and when I don't hook it to the harness, I just like a basic wrist cuff, personally. Again, so it's a nitpick from a perspective of my opinion there, but it is what it is. We try to pick out something we don't like from every product we review, just so you know we're legit. We're not just out here pushing things at you because we want to sell them. You know, we have a million different light wind wings at the shop we can push for you. But if you're looking for something with this kind of performance, nice price tag, you like the look of it, whatever, we can get you set up on the Ozone. So this has been Tucker with MACkiteboarding. If you have any questions, comments, put them in the comments section below. Of course, you can pick up the phone, chat, email, get us at the shop, and we'll get you taken care of with any other questions you might have, or if you need a quote, or have any other questions maybe about sizing and your weight and your local conditions and all of that, we're happy to do those custom suggestions for you. So definitely reach out and we'd be happy to help. This has been Tucker at MACkiteboarding.com, and we'll see you next time.